Who are you when no one's watching? Do you even know? Or have years of pretending folded your truth so tightly it no longer moves, no longer breathes? When the masks stay on too long, the face beneath gets blurry. And if you're exhausted all the time, if your smile stiffens mid-sentence, maybe it's not burnout. Maybe it's something heavier, the weight of constantly managing the version of you the world wants, and losing track of the version even you used to believe in. Keep listening, because by the end, you'll stop calling yourself fake for feeling this way. You'll understand why hiding isn't weakness. It's something deeper, something older. We all start as real. Children don't curate. They don't shrink in shame when they cry too loudly or laugh too hard. They don't care if their socks don't match or if someone thinks they're weird. But somewhere along the line, maybe it was a hallway glance, a teacher's raised eyebrow, or the quiet way approval started to come only when we played along, we learned to manage. One version for home, another for school. A third, prettier one online. It's not just reacting, it's splitting, and the more you split, the harder it is to remember which parts were meant to stay. And that tension, the quiet conflict between being and performing, it doesn't go away. It turns into overthinking, into that slightly delayed pause before you say what you feel, into that moment of hesitation before you post something, because you're scanning it, not for truth, but for impact. And then it spreads. You start feeling dishonest, even when you're not lying. You start feeling invisible, even when everyone's watching. That's what this video is about. Stay. Because by the time we're done, you'll understand. You're not lost, you're layered. And there's a reason authenticity feels like danger. The mind remembers how rejection feels like cold air on wet skin, how a moment of too muchness became something you apologized for. So you edit, you mold, you become palatable. It's not just social survival, it's emotional inflation, giving versions of yourself that cost more than they give back. And you know it's happening. Deep inside, a small voice starts whispering, "This isn't me." Every time you laugh at something you don't find funny, every time you nod when you want to disagree, every time you suppress the storm because you've learned peace often looks like silence. But what if you did say what you think? What if you showed up with the full weight of who you are, unfiltered, unsoftened, unapologetic? That thought doesn't feel freeing. It feels terrifying. Because the truth is, we don't fear being real. We fear being real and rejected. We fear authenticity when it has no audience, no applause, when it makes things awkward, complicated, quiet, because image gets rewarded. But image also drains. And slowly, without quite realizing it, your reflection starts to feel more familiar than your depth. It's strange, right? How we can post our highlight reels and still feel unseen. How the more together we appear, the lonelier we sometimes feel. Because there's a bitter irony in image making. We trade connection for approval. We give people the performance of closeness while emotionally starving behind the curtain. And yet we keep doing it. Why? Maybe because pretending gives us a sense of control. If they reject the version I crafted, maybe I can detach. That wasn't the real me anyway. It's safer. But it costs you. It costs you truth, depth, and the chance to ever really be held. Sometimes the mask becomes a muscle memory. You smile before you've felt the joy. You agree before you've even asked yourself if you mean it. You perform tenderness when your body just wants to curl away. And inside, but it aches. Not because you're fake, but because you've lived so long in adaptation that you forgot you were allowed to anchor. So you look in the mirror and you wonder, when did I forget how to just be? And the answer hits soft but deep. You didn't forget. You were slowly taught it wasn't safe. And it's not always dramatic. Sometimes it's subtle. Like watching someone more expressive than you say something real and noticing the room go quiet. Or hearing your own voice tremble when asking for what you need. It's those small wounds, the glances, the discomfort. That's what grooms us to manage, to decorate ourselves into acceptability, to create a self that won't ruffle feathers, that won't take up too much room, that won't need too much, feel too deep, dream too big. But inside, the original you, the unpolished voice, the first draft self, it waits. It's still there. And it's restless. It shows up in strange ways. That sudden irritation you can't explain. The emptiness after another party where you said all the right things but felt none of them. The moments of laughter that felt staged even as your teeth showed. That's your truth tugging on your sleeve, asking to be known again. Not by the world, by you. And it matters. Because when we only show what we think is acceptable, we start to attract things that aren't meant for us. People, jobs, even love that resonate only with our performance, not our person. So we end up surrounded, but detached. In conversations, but miles away. And that loneliness? It doesn't come from lack of company. It comes from speaking without being heard. From touch that never reaches beyond the mask. From never knowing, truly knowing, who would still choose you if you stopped curating. The mask isn't only what you show, it's also what you hide. The mess, the doubts, the strange quirks, the quiet pain, the laughter too loud, the dreams too unrealistic. But those are the fingerprints of your identity. And slowly, when you begin hiding those things, you stop growing. Because growth is personal. It needs contact. Raw contact. It needs other people to see the cracked surfaces and still say, I see you. I want you anyway. But if they only ever see the smooth version, well, no one can love what you never offer. Halfway through, maybe there's a voice inside asking, but if I take off the mask, won't I lose everything I've built? And the honest answer? Maybe. Maybe you will lose some of it, but not the parts that were meant for you. The relationships sealed by performance, those were already fragile. The status built on suppression, it was already crumbling. Realness has a cost. But it also gives something money can't buy, peace. You can only be loved at the level you're known. But why is it so hard to be known? Because we've collapsed identity into brand. Because somewhere along the way, we thought being ourselves wasn't enough. We needed to be a vision of ourselves. Not just liked, but liked consistently. Not just real, but marketable. And so we edit even our healing. We filter our breakdowns. We aestheticize our pain. Not for us, for who's watching. And it leaves us numb. Beautiful, but numb. Accepted, but hollow. Visible, but not seen. And when that hollowness becomes too loud to ignore, we start to pull back. Bit by bit. Maybe we text less. Maybe we stop showing up. Maybe we laugh weirdly and say, I'm just tired. But what we really mean is, I miss being real. But we don't know how to say it. Because language isn't made for what we're feeling. How do you explain that you're surrounded by approval and craving authenticity? Here's the thing no one tells you. Authenticity isn't an arrival, it's a return. You were whole before the world taught you which parts to shave off. You don't need to build a self, you need to remember one. And yes, it's scary. Unmasking always is. It can feel like undressing in a room where the lights are a little too bright, but there's also something kind of holy about it. Peeling back the perfection and saying, here I am, with questions, not answers, with scars, with softness, with weirdness that no one claps for. Realness isn't loud. It isn't even always visible. Sometimes it's in the tremble of a voice choosing not to lie. Sometimes it's in saying no for the first time and feeling your stomach twist. Sometimes it's crying in a room full of smiles because that emotion had nowhere else to go. And in those moments, you're not weak, you're alive. Fully. Finally. But this doesn't mean you have to shout your truth everywhere. Being real isn't about overexposing, it's about aligning. Quietly real where it counts. Honest in small spaces. Authenticity doesn't need an audience, it just needs your permission. Even one moment of not performing, of answering how are you with not okay but here, that's a revolution. Not for the world, but for you. And slowly the world around you starts to bend. Some people pull away. They were there for the mask. Let them go. Some people move closer. Surprised maybe, but drawn to the heat of someone who feels human. And you start to feel less like a product and more like a person. Less like an actor, more like a life. It's subtle at first. You wake up and the air feels easier. Conversations hurt less. Even silence becomes sweeter. Because when you're not performing, even stillness feels like connection. And the strange thing is, you won't stop managing completely. No one does. We're social beings. Curating is part of communication. But when it stops being a defense and starts being a choice, it becomes art, not armor. When your image lines up with your inner world, there's no drain, no dissonance, just a quiet harmony and knowing that who they see is finally who you are. So the question isn't, how do I become authentic? It's, where did I stop trusting I was enough? Maybe it was middle school. Maybe it was a heartbreak. Maybe it was a parent's silence. Find that moment, not to live there, but to reclaim it. That's what this has always been about, not fixing you, just freeing you from the weight of pretending, from the fear that being seen is the same as being judged. Because it's not. Keep walking, keep peeling, not all at once, just corner by corner. Learn your edges again. Let the mask slip sometimes just to see who notices. And stays. You'll find something surprising. The people who love your realness will hold it more gently than you held your image. They won't need you to be wise or funny or perfect. Just true. And maybe, just maybe, you'll start to hold yourself that way too. You were never fake. Just protecting something precious. And now, it's ready to breathe.